how this came to you and what appealed to you about it. Some guy who kills people.
What appealed to me is that it's different, is that it sort of is a genre-bending kind of film, is that it has a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's constantly surprising you, I think. And the part that they wanted me to play was a more rural character than I usually get the chance to play, and but still with the same kind of intelligent distraction that I love to play. This sort of marching to its own drummer stuff, and I liked the relationship with Karen Black. I liked the fact that he's just pretty much a hound, and takes life pretty easy and thinks he's got it all under control and it's all going along nicely, and then all of a sudden these murders start happening and he sort of kicks into another gear, yet still in the same sort of interesting rhythm, character rhythm, which I liked about him. I don't know whose idea was that, or whether it just came out of the dialogue, or whether it was the nature of the piece that it had a certain rhythm.
Yeah.
And I liked the love. I liked the family story in it, mixed with the thriller part of it, and I just thought, and I thought it was, and I liked Jack. I like Ryan a lot. I think he's a very talented writer, and he and I had a good time, coming up with little tweaks here and there.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it exciting to work with newer filmmakers in the independent form? Does it give you a chance to kind of work out some different acting muscles in a way?
Well, yeah, I think you hit it on the nose. I mean, this weekend and next weekend I'm doing a web series with a guy named Adam Hall, who just graduated from USC, and I'm playing this sort of crazy, wacky scientist, creepy guy, and I haven't ever had that opportunity to play that creepy a guy. And he's a very talented, and he's surrounded himself with not all just, well, a lot of recent graduates and people who are just have that kind of energy, that kind of like, I can just beat up the world and make it, and I like being around that. It's like having young friends.
Yeah, but that's what I was curious about, because you put your trust in a new director, new filmmakers. Mm-hmm. What are the characteristics you're looking for to be able to invest that amount of trust in?
I think somebody who seems professional, that it's not going to be a piece of crap at the end of the day, somebody who is intelligent, and somebody who's has a sort of obscure sense of humor and sort of a look on the world which parallels mine, and offers me the opportunity to, as the old cliche is, to stretch. And it's the worst thing is actors who do these independent features and end up playing characters that they're totally wrong for, and it sort of throws the balance of the show, of the movie, off. But I haven't done that yet. I haven't insisted that I play something that's so different from me. Actually, I'm actually having the opportunity to play much more who I really am in these kinds of movies, as opposed to, the jilted husband or something on television, or the mean lawyer or whatever. You really get boxed into those things on television, but here I get to be who I really am.
Well, you've been doing it for so long, so I'm curious to know if if your appreciation for the art form of acting has changed or morphed at all over the years.
I've sort of taken acting for granted. I studied, I went to college, I got a degree, and then I just sort of never went back to class. I tried to just have a life and bring that life to my work and trust that I had enough technique and I had enough instinct to make it work. And over the years, what I think you learn to do is just relax, be less
self-conscious about,
Yeah, self-conscious about your work and all your choices, and you just you just show up and do it, and surprise yourself every time you go in and do something. Whether or not my attitude about acting has changed. I think that I'm the older I've gotten, the more I've done, the more minutia I try to explore in the parts. I'm not that attracted to stage musicals or anything anymore because they're just a little too superficial and glamorous and out in one and look at me and all that, and they don't really offer you the opportunity to find other layers and use other parts of you. It was all very good for me in the beginning because that's the only part I was willing to let show, was that look at me kind of thing. And now I think I have so much more to offer because I've lived a life,
Yeah, exactly. But whenever I talk to actors that have been in the business for a while, they say something very similar. They say, when I was young, I kind of felt the urge to throw in everything but the kitchen sink. But as you get older and more experienced, you learn to simplify.
Well, yeah, I still throw in the kitchen sink. But that's why I need strong directors and directors who, have a good eye, because I don't stop creating just because I walk onto the set and I've learned my lines. Mm-hmm. I mean, I will constantly be looking for things and ways to do things and props and this and that, and I need a strong director to go, why don't you go back and do it the way you did it in the second take, or when we rehearsed it, or when you auditioned, or whatever. But I have to go through that process of trying so many different things, because that's just the way I work. I work by elimination. My performance ends up. I end up eliminating 9/10 of the crap that I bring to the set.
Well, you play comedy so beautifully, and you've done a lot of comedy. And like I said, you're just hysterical in this film. Is it difficult to find a tone where it's not too broad, not too underplayed?
Yeah, that's always a problem. I auditioned for something the other day, and I went in, and there was two guys in the office, and first thing out of my mouth was, how big is the comedy in this? And they said, oh, this is a very real comedy. It's a one-camera show. It's all very based in reality. And you sort of have to know, as you approach the work, or like in that instance, as you approach the audition, what level of wackiness do you expel? I mean, you have to. It's just a whole different sort of art form. One of them becomes like clowning, and the other it really makes you look so much deeper into the flaws of the character, and therein lies the humor. If you're self-consciously trying to be funny, even as a human being, it's never that funny. My wife always says to me, you're funnier when you're just yourself. when you're not trying to be funny, and
right,
and that's sort of my goal.
Well, and I've only seen the trailer for FDR, American Badass.
Oh well, now that's a whole different genre.
That's broader, right?
Much broader, yeah. But it's Batman-ishy, Batman, and it's got that sort of pop fizz kind of thing. But still, you have to believe the characters. And again, it's just a rhythm thing. It's like music. I mean, there's a tempo to that kind of show, and you have to respect the writer creator's vision of it, and really listen to them because it's so specific. It's a little bit like Rocky Horror. I mean, it's a very specific type of genre. It's and that's why a lot of them don't work, because unless you get actors who are willing to make the same movie together, it just becomes too scattered. And the director has to have a strong vision. And I think that in FDR, American Badass, they had a very strong vision, the creators of that, and hired really good actors who had the ability to underplay, and so in a way, by underplaying it, we're overplaying it. The comedy is in the underplaying. The comedy is in the sincerity. This is what I learned doing Spin City a lot, is that you don't have to always feel like you have to put a hook on something or find a different way to do it or add something to it, like you're talking about the kitchen sink. You really just have to trust the material, and I think as you age and do more and more work, you're hopefully attracted to material, and you have the opportunity to do things that you can trust and just let the words speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm. You started in musical theater, right?
Yeah.
There's so many great actors out there today, but less and less have a theater background. Do you think that that's essential kind of training for film acting?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, I found I had a lot of bad habits I had to get over to be able to work on film. Things that I had learned for the stage and things that benefited me, on stage, size of performance and a certain energy and so when I was sort of transitioning to movies and television, I had to go through a real adjustment period of all of that. I don't know. I think if they're well trained, actors are well trained at any age, for the medium that they really want to focus on. I think stage teaches you discipline. I think it teaches you the ability to rehearse and repeat performances, which I think are real important. Because as you know, when you're shooting movies and television, you're shooting all out of sequence, and you have to have a sense of the whole. And I think by working on a play or a musical on stage, you have that. You have an innate sense of the whole, because you're playing a whole thing every night in your beginning, middle, and end, and you're trying to organize it in your brain and in your mind and in your energy. And I think a lot of people who work on film and haven't worked on stage in some ways don't see the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, because in film, it just by the nature of the process, it's more about the minutia, working on moment by moment, as opposed to the whole arc, which is
Yeah, but as you're saying, but you still need, and I think that's the value of theater, is you discover an arc and you play on the arc and you change the arc, and every night the arc in some way when you're on stage will adjust itself to the evening and to your moods and to the rest of the actors and this and that. But you develop this instinct for it, and I mean, the best film actors started on stage, all the way Brando, you know.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, I wanted to ask, of course, about Rocky Horror Picture Show. Sure. You've been asked everything that possibly can be asked about the movie, I'm sure, but this came really early in your feature film career. What is it like to be a part of a cultural phenomenon that occurred that early in your career?
Well, I think just because I made it early doesn't mean it became a cultural phenomenon early.
Right.
That's the difference, you know. I mean, when it first came out in 76 or 75 or something, I was basically working on the stage. I had a pretty good career on Broadway going at the moment, and at that time, and I didn't even remember it opening. I was so involved in other things, and it wasn't until 8 years, 7 years, 6 years later did it sort of ring a bell that thing, it was having some legs, and it was becoming a sort of an interesting theatrical phenomenon. And only in the last 10 years, maybe, have I really thought about it and had to think about it, because people ask me questions about it, about, why did it become what it became? How is it affecting people? How did it affect me? And it wasn't. It was just another job at the time. I mean, it wasn't anything life-shaking for me, other than the fact that we shot it in England and I'd never been abroad, and so it was. There were some interesting life lessons I had in it, but it sort of went along with what I was doing on stage. Some of these sort of larger-than-life, funnier. I'd been doing some rock musicals in New York, and I'd been doing a lot of theater, and there was obviously a very theatrical side to that film that I responded to and I liked, and which was challenging. It's like I was saying earlier, the size of performances, it was challenging in that, because everybody had to have that sort of hyper reality. It was such a strange world we were living in,
Yeah.
Rocky Horror, and I was playing the sort of straight guy at the anchor. Susan and I were the anchors in that, and so we had to be particularly careful and not camp it up,
Right.
Because everybody else was camping it up around us, and they wouldn't have been effective if we were all just camping it up and not thinking about the real moment-to-moments in the story. But how did it affect me? It still affects me. I love that movie.
But, it goes to show that you never know what will hit the zeitgeist. It's not something that you can ever plan.
Right, yeah. And people who have tried to make another Rocky Horror kind of experience, they always fail, because it didn't have... They try to do it, and that movie was found by the folks and the people, and they created an event out of it, and you can't make people fall in love with something as full and as rich as that. Nobody's been able to reproduce it, and because I think partially because there's a certain innocence to it, yet a sort of dirtiness, but an innocent dirtiness. It's like it has such a wide appeal, and parents bring their kids to it now. I don't know. I think if you watch that movie without all the stuff that goes on the stage and all of the hoopla and the rice and the toast and all that, which is all fine and fun, but I think if you really looked at the movie, you'd see what an interesting, well-crafted movie it was. Tight. All the performances were spot on. Good music. I think it deserves a place in film history and not just because of everybody making it into something, this event that it is, but I think the film itself is unique and way sort of ahead of its time.
Yeah, I do too. Well, Mr. Bostwick, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thanks. You've provoked me in interesting ways.
Well, good. I'm always happy to provoke. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.